Welcome to the Top Dog Mindset Podcast, where we unlock the secrets of running a successful dog training business. I'm your host, Kevin, joined by my co-host, Angel. Together, we bring you expert insights, inspiring stories, and practical tips. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, we're here to provide you with the necessary information to build a thriving dog training company. So relax, join us with a cup of coffee as we explore the Top Dog Mindset Podcast. All right, welcome back, guys. Another episode of the Top Dog Mindset Podcast. And today, Angel and Kevin here just kind of talk to you guys about something that we've been talking to a lot of clients about. And that is just kind of like the time of year that we're coming into. And if you're struggling right now, like different things that you can be doing to move your business forward, keep the momentum going, and not run into a really big dry spell or something like that. So, the first thing I kind of want to just kick off this call talking about is, I was just, when I was coming into my office here, my wife Jamie was on a call with some of our clients, and they're doing very well. And a couple months ago, they were struggling to make sales, struggling to figure out exactly what it was in their business that was missing. And I know, Angel, you had done a good amount of coaching with them. I hopped on a long call with them as well. And I said to one of them, I said, what do you feel like has been the biggest difference over the last 30, 60 days for you that really allowed your business to really take off? And, these are people that are now doing, 10, 20, 30K a month, right? And whereas a couple of months ago, they were really slowed down. And I said to him, what do you feel like is the biggest impact? And he said, well, like the videos you guys are putting together, the course trainings, all that stuff. But he said the main thing was the conversation where you said to me, just the statistics of the importance of answering your phone. And I don't remember this off the top of my head. I think we've talked about this before, and I said that same exact thing. But it was something along the lines of if somebody calls your company and you answer that call when it comes in, there's a 50% higher likelihood of you landing the job versus letting it hit voicemail and even calling them back 30 seconds later. There's all these other things, like the company that gets to the person first, right? There's just a multiplier on the likelihood of you getting the job versus it going to somebody else. And so I think where a lot of people start looking for tactics on how to make sales and what am I saying or not saying or doing or not doing, in a world of all of that, that's something we're all going to get better at over time, like our sales process and our pitch and handling objections and all that stuff. It's all important. But the number one thing that you can control today is your effort, right? And that's all that is when a call comes in, the effort and blocking out the voice in your head that says I don't feel like answering it now. I don't like talking to people on the phone. I'm just going to email them, or I'm just going to text them, or I'll call them back later. I'm telling you right now, when you would be shocked if you do some research on this and just look into the importance of answering your phone. And again, it's just effort, putting in the effort to just block out that negative voice and just saying, I'm just going to do it anyway, because it's going to have that right today will have the biggest impact on your business. So Angel, with that being said, why don't you talk a little bit about that and just kind of your experience and what you've heard from clients, all that stuff when it comes to the importance of answering the phone and stuff.
Yeah. So, statistics aside, I think if you think about it, whenever someone is looking for a dog trainer, most of the time it's when someone has reached their last straw with their dog, or, something happened. They just got to a point where I need to get on Google and I need to find someone. And so they just start basically going down the line of people to call. So when people are in a panicked state like that, or even just in a state where maybe it's not their last straw, but they have just fully decided I have the money now to invest in some training for my dog, that person also is calling with the intent of spending that money. So either way, people are reaching out to you with some type of urgent intent. And so, yeah, by not answering the call or, intentionally just letting it ring so you can finish a session with the current dog that you're working with or something like that, that chance of being able to close that sale is just like slowly diminishing because they could then be calling the next person, and that next person could answer the phone and have even more urgency to get that consultation scheduled.
Yeah.
But there was something that I talked with one of our clients about recently as well, and it was just kind of like about mindset. This may or may not help some people, but for me, whenever I was actively training, because, a lot of the time answering the phone can be a pain just because like you have so many other jobs within your business to do. One of those big ones is working with dogs, right? So if you're in the middle of a session, a training session, and someone calls, it just feels so inconvenient to stop that session to then move on to this next task. So, something that I helped myself with was just kind of like changing my mindset a little bit. If I was in the middle of working with a dog, I also got an Apple Watch, which was really helpful, and it's not required, but I will say it was very helpful. And it was just helpful because I was able to just lift my wrist and see like, oh, my phone is buzzing because, my mom's calling me, or like, oh, that's actually a client. Let me get to that. Or
Yeah.
check to see like what the text message was instead of putting literally everything on hold to pull
Yeah.
my phone out. Especially like during the cold months when I have like 5 layers and I have to like peel through all the layers to find where my phone is.
Yeah.
But as far as mindset, when I'm in the middle of a training session, instead of like, oh my goodness, I'm literally like getting somewhere with this dog, let me stop so I can grab my phone and blah, blah, blah. Like I just put the dog into a down, or I put the dog into a sit, or, I step on the leash to just work on some sit on the dog in that moment. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to pause this for a second. And for the next, 5 minutes, I'm going to handle the stuff on my phone. I am going to respond to these text messages really quick, even though it's throwing my task or my schedule off just a little bit. Just having that mindset of, okay, I'm going to pause this session right now. And you can still like do something productive and active in that session by, again, putting the dog into a sit, a down place, step on the leash or whatever it is. It can still be productive. But again, just thinking like, I'm just going to do this really quick. So that way for the next 2 minutes or for the next 5 minutes, I can get back to all of these text messages, or so that way I can wrap up this quick phone call with this client. So it might sound like small or maybe not make a huge difference, but for me personally, just having like that little mindset change made a huge difference, because I feel like it all came down to like the mental load
Yeah.
of, training dogs and then answering the phone or getting back to text messages for clients whose dogs are currently with me. And just like, instead of having to mesh everything together, I just mentally like put one task on hold and completed the next task and then went back to the next task. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But when I spoke with this client about it, it made perfect sense to him. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to start doing that, because like
Yeah.
mentally it just seems to like take a little bit more, or yeah, a little bit more stress off of you when you're having to like do all these different things seemingly at the same time as a business owner.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you just said is so spot on and something that is so actionable for people. It just reminded me of go get a good pair of wireless headphones. If you have an iPhone, like all of this stuff is a business play. People are like, I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
go spend money on that. It's like if you go spend the $150 or whatever it is for a pair of AirPods, I could be way off on what they even cost. I can't remember since, when I bought these, but the point is like, even if you do go buy an Apple Watch or you do go buy a pair of AirPods that like work really well, that allows you to make more money. Because like, yeah, you spend the $150 or whatever it is, or you go get a watch for a couple $100, or I know I'm way far off with these numbers, whatever they are, right? I'll have to check on like it could be like $1,000 for a watch. But the point is like there are things out there that are like, that are available, and
Mm-hmm.
they're a business expense for you. You got to write it off at the end of the year and stuff like that. So having a good pair of headphones allow you to do things like you pop them in and no one's gonna care, by the way. Like, if somebody calls you and they want to talk to you about dog training and they hear a barking dog in the background, like, no one's gonna be like, "Can you please get that dog to quiet down?" Like, you're a dog trainer. Like when I'm talking to our clients and they're, "I'm sorry about the barking dogs," I'm like, dude, I could not care less. I work with dog trainers. I know how this goes. I have a dog of my
Yeah.
own. Does not bother me. And it's going to make perfect sense to the client too. If like even in the middle of, a conversation with somebody, you want to be obnoxious about it, but clients do this with me all the time and it doesn't bug me. If they give a command to a dog while I'm on a call with them, like that's what their job is. That's what they're doing. So like
Yeah.
you can do all that stuff. You like Angel said, like if you guys have a watch and you can see who's calling you, if like this is important, you pop in your headphones, you take the call. But I just want to really hammer this home because I think that this is the whole thing here that like these clients that we're talking about here, they literally went from being, on the struggle bus and being like, what are we going to do? We can't really, figure it out to all of a sudden having a massive month and really good weeks where they're making all this money. And the biggest thing is that they just started answering their phone. And I heard an
Mhm.
entrepreneur talking about this. I heard Alex Hormozy talking about this. I'm sure some of you guys know who that is. Um, he was talking about in his company years ago how they were trying to figure out how to grow their revenue. And what they discovered was that they figured out a way where they could literally increase the lifetime value of customers, like having them work with them longer by 5 times if they just onboarded them and did things in a little bit of a different way. Right. And so what they did is they took all of their emphasis off of like sales and marketing and they just retrained the entire company on how to like onboard people properly so they could like 5x their revenue that they were getting from each individual client. And so what's really interesting about that is like sometimes you can't, outsell or outmarket just a crappy process. And so like if you really figure out in your business like that's a really good example. If you know that just answering your phone will triple the revenue that you can do in a month because like it just allows you to capitalize on more of the leads. Like you don't need more leads. What you need to do is get better at capitalizing on the current leads that you're getting. Now, I'm not saying that obviously you shouldn't try and get more leads. Like all of that is obviously beneficial. Not everyone's going to pan out. But the point is like if there's a way today that you can start doing something that's going to have a massive impact on your business, this is going to be it. And this is the number one thing at times when people are struggling and you're having a hard time making sales. Again, it's just effort. Like put in the effort to do this because that is what you're going to see give you the biggest reward.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I mean, everything is all tied together. And like you talked about the whole onboarding process, even if like it's a new person calling about training, you've never spoke with them before, they're not even signed up yet, that's still like considered the onboarding process because you're still having like that initial communication with them. You have to set, a good impression the first time for them to like get excited to want to meet you. And then even when it comes to scheduling the actual consultation, like we talk about all the time, how that is also part of your sales process. You're not selling anything yet, but you're technically having to sell them on agreeing to meet with you in person. So everything like really ties into each other. And the phone call is just important, or the phone conversation is just important as a consultation and
Yeah.
all of that. It's all about like building rapport, building relationships, getting people not only excited to work with you, but excited to like meet you and excited to see what you can do to help change their life.
Yeah, I mean, that is part of the sales process, like to your
Mm-hmm.
point, right? It's like it's not this. I think a lot of times people just think of like sales as like the consultation or the evaluation and like the close, right? That's what people think, but it's all of it. I was having a call with one of our clients yesterday, and I was talking to him and he's doing really well. And he's just a very genuine person. And it's always funny like talking about these people because I'm trying to like keep everyone's anonymity, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
not that they would care anyway, but we just always like to try and keep people's privacy. But I was saying to him how he was like, I don't even feel like I have like real sales tactics that I use or anything like that. And what I was saying is like But the reason it works is because you just do a good job at connecting with people. Like you're nice and happy and helpful over the phone. You go out there, you make a genuine connection with people. And it's like the saying in sales, it's all about relational over transactional. If you can do a really good job building relationships with people, the transaction is going to come very easily, right? Versus
Hmm.
you just look at it like this is just a transaction and like what can I do to get them to buy? And let's just only talk about dog training and like what's wrong with their dog and what type of training we need to do. It's like there's just so much more to the human psyche than that. Like the dog training aspect is part of it, but it's not the whole equation. And so
Yeah.
like if you can really just look at it as like it's starting a relationship, right, with somebody when they call you. And it's like, how do you want to be perceived by this person? Um, the first time that they reach out to you? Do you want to be the person who like is unreliable in the first transaction? They didn't even answer their phone. They never called me back. They never texted me. Like, I don't know about you, but that's not the type of person that like I would want to necessarily do business with, you know? And like I've had to take a hard, long look at myself in the mirror at certain points and like I'm not perfect at this. Like everybody has their own version of like needing to evolve and get better at it. But the point is like, would you want to do business with yourself? Like we all hold these other companies to standards, right? It's so easy to call a
Hmm.
company and be like, they didn't answer, like that company sucks. I don't want to work with them or whatever. But like owning your own business, you have to look at yourself that way and be like, am I at a point where like I am the by far in a way the most obvious need to work with that company choice just because of the experience that I deliver to my customers?
Yeah. I like you said, all about effort, all about professionalism. I feel like we're kind of getting the point across pretty well, but just to throw another
Hammer it
example
home
out
one more
there.
time.
Yeah. So kind of like reverse things, right? Like if you as a business owner are, let's say, looking to hire on some people and you have a group of like four different people all want a job with you. If they're all calling you because they're inquiring about this job, um and you're not answering, or I'm like I said, other way around, so you call all of them, trying to see their availability maybe for an interview or something like
Mhm.
that. No one answers the phone, but then they end up texting you back, and instead of you texting back, you're calling. Like you're trying to get this point across. Like, I want to
Yeah.
talk on the phone. No one's answering the phone. But then you have this one person who answers right away. And then maybe, a few days later, you guys are supposed to meet up. And so they call you to follow up instead of constantly going back and forth text messaging or them just kind of like waiting around to see what's going on. Like they are making that effort and making that initiative and, being the professional one and standing out aside from all the other three possible candidates, and they are making that effort to reach out to you to check in and reach out to you to see like, oh, are we still meeting up for coffee or for that working interview or whatever it is. You as a business owner looking to hire someone, you're probably going to think that person is standing out just because of the amount of effort that they're putting in.
Yeah.
And maybe despite everyone else's experience, you're like, this person has made a really good first impression. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so that's just another way to look at it. All around, it goes without saying that it's just like the amount of effort that you're putting in, professionalism. We on this end, like, totally get the sometimes the hassle that comes along with it when you're doing so many other tasks. But at the end of the day, it's just like what is most important to you when it comes to gaining new clientele and closing those sales and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And two things. Like, I promise I'm not going to start giving dating advice on this podcast. Try my hardest not to. But I
Maybe we
always
could use
think
it.
that, yeah, I mean, and not that I've been on a date in a long time. I'm happily married. I have been since 2018. And but the point is like, if you look at it through that same lens, like if you're, I'll speak from like a guy's perspective, right? Like if you're just desperate and you come across that way, like that's not good. We're not saying to like blow up people's phones and stuff like that. Like you got to kind of like read the tea leaves a little bit. But if you're just totally absent and like never answer, you're gonna be like, if someone was doing that to you, you'd be like, this person's not interested in me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to invest any time in this. They never answer my calls. They never answer my text messages. Like they don't seem like they're pursuing me at all. And so like that's a good way to look at this. So like
Yeah.
just think of it in that lens. But I totally lost my train of thought on the second point I was going to make there. I'm sure it'll come back to me. But moving on from this topic, like you guys get the gist here, or you guys get the gist of like how this is supposed to go. And the last thing I was going to say about this is like you you need to grind it out for a little bit, right? So like what I mean by that is like staring down the barrel of 30 years running your business like this is brutal. And I wouldn't want to do it either, right? Where it's like you're in training sessions, you have 4 board and trains in, you have all these private lessons you're doing as well. And sales call, or leads are coming in and you're scrambling to get to the phone and stuff like that. Like you're not supposed to do that for 30 years, right? Like you're supposed to hire somebody at a certain point and then, by the way, train that person really well on how to do the job because that's something we see a lot of as well as they just hire somebody, hand it off, and then they're like, they don't know how to sell, it doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, you got to train these people on how to do this stuff. And we'll save that for a different video. But the point is like you got to grind it out for some time and just do this stuff. And it's hard and you're working long days and stuff like that to put yourself in a position where you have enough income coming in that now you can afford to hire somebody, right? And like that is why you're doing this. And so the reason I'm saying this is because if you don't look at it through that perspective and you're just like this is so difficult, if it's too difficult, it's like it's not going to be sustainable. But it's like running a sprint versus a marathon. Sometimes in your business you do need to sprint. And you do need to
Mhm.
like be like winded and out of breath and stuff like that. Like you got to just like figure it out and like get through that phase. And so you can get to the next phase so you can afford to do it. And so this is all just to say that like this is not a forever thing. Like it's going to be hard, but we've said this before. It's like pick your version of what hard is. Like do you want it to be, hard where you're not making enough money and you're struggling and stuff like that? Or do you want it to be hard because you have too much work and you're struggling to keep up with it? Like I know which one I would prefer, you know?
Right.
So with that being said, let's move on to the next thing because I think this is another thing that's going to be really tactical and help people. So, Angel, why don't you talk a little bit about like what we were talking about before with promotions and stuff like that, and kind of and how you've been seeing people leverage them and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I feel like this is a little bit of a spin-off from a previous recorded video that we did where we talked about strategic discounts. So I think right now something that we've noticed with some of our clients is they're in a little bit of a slower time of year. There's a lot going on in the world and in the economy and all that fun stuff. And what I have noticed by talking to a lot of our clients and something that I've heard repeatedly is I feel like I just need to lower my prices. And that is the last thing you should do. So that's why we talk about strategic discounts is because you don't want to lower your prices. You don't want to sell yourself short. You don't want to feel like, you know, in the moment of a consult that you are starting to like get nervous and like, oh my goodness, all of a sudden I need to offer them like 50% off of this package. Otherwise they're not going to buy. Like plan this stuff out and kind of use like these seasonal changes. I don't want to say to your advantage, but just get creative with it. We have a lot of clients that have been doing like different promotions for this time of year. And not to get like kind of all over the place, but last year around November timeframe ish, we talked about like holiday sales, holiday readiness programs, things like that, things to kind of like prepare you for the holidays. Holidays are usually notoriously slower because of people traveling and spending more money and all that kind of stuff. So something more recently has been because we are in October, we're not necessarily in the holidays, but we're quickly approaching. So kind of like an early bird holiday special. So
Mhm.
you're just trying to get out ahead of it and get yourself booked out for the holidays. So when the holidays come, you're not necessarily like super stressed out about getting yourself booked out for that month. Um, so I think that helps with just like the time of year that we're in right now. But another thing too is I think often dog owners don't really consider training until it's like too late, or until, in this case, they have family over for Thanksgiving or Christmas. And then afterwards are like, holy cow, I need to get my dog trained because that was an absolute shipwreck. So, by kind of wording it as like an early bird holiday sale, I feel like it helps kind of getting those ideas in the owner's head of like, hey, you've had some crappy behavior going on for a long time. Why don't you get ahead of it so that way you have a well-behaved dog before your family comes for Thanksgiving, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is just like when these times of year comes, just like get creative with it. Don't feel like you need to like sell yourself short or basically like cheapen your product or anything like that. Heck, if anything, increase your prices and you can still offer a discount because by the time that discount is applied, it's bringing it down to what your original prices even were. But we've noticed some success with it, with people offering, a promotion or like a special and things like that. Keeping it strategic, I think, is important versus, like I mentioned earlier, versus it being something where you're in the consultation and you kind of like panic and you just throw out this random ginormous number. And then
Yeah.
afterwards, you're like, oh, that was kind of big. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
keep it planned, keep it strategic, get creative with it. And that just kind of like helps bring people in.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And I don't know if you guys, somebody was just calling me and my phone was ringing. Sorry, I had to close that out. But um, so I wanted to kind of piggyback off that for a second there. So I've said this many times, and I think there's all this different psychological stuff you can go into and researching, discounts and when to leverage them, when not to, and stuff like that. But I just think from the simplest perspective possible, the reason they work so well is because people like to feel like they're getting a deal. And we
Mm-hmm.
have businesses that we work with. I know one of our clients in particular is $1 million company and he gives so many people a discount and he just has it built into his pricing, right? He's like, I just inflated my prices to that point because I just know after analyzing the data that people buy at a higher rate when they feel like they're getting $500 off. It's as simple
Yeah.
as that. And
Yeah.
so like that, it's a weird thing because there are people out there that be like, it cheapens my brand and stuff like that. And what I always think about is, I know I've said this before, but it does not cheapen, these massive companies like Apple and Amazon's brand when they offer discounts and they do it and they make billions of dollars. So
Yeah.
just, think about the different ways that you can make things more appealing. And to your point, Angel, I know something that you had, in one of our coaching calls with all of our clients, you talked about like holiday readiness programs. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
very marketable thing, right? So like being able to, this is marketing 101, by the way, right? So like being able to speak to specific pain points, right? So in your marketing materials or in your sales appointments and stuff like that, if you get the hint that this person is hosting Thanksgiving this year and they have a dog that's unruly, and you can bring that up and say like, oh man, you guys are having like Thanksgiving, do they tend to like jump on people? Oh my God, my dog is so annoying with that. They're always jumping on people, barking the whole time. You can be like, hey, we actually have this like holiday readiness program. It's our 3-week board and train where we're gonna really focus on like teaching your dog to be like calm in the house and stuff like that and know where to like go when people come over. And you can really sell it that way. It's so much more applicable to somebody instead of being just like, it's our 3-week board and train, or you could do our 4-week board and train. It's like that doesn't really mean anything to people, right? So like if
Yeah.
you can really sell it to people, or like another thing is like the 4th of July, right? That's a really good example. There's a lot of people who have dogs who are like freaked out by the fireworks. If there's things that you feel like you can do to help dogs be more calm and relaxed in environments like that, and you can sell them on that, or, pick any holiday, right? Like there's just different ways you can position things. So you can use that in your marketing materials, saying to people like, has your dog like jumped and grabbed the turkey leg, on Thanksgiving Day and like ruined the entire day? Make a joke out of it, like
Yeah.
you don't need to deal with that. So like just different things you can kind of really emphasize and make people aware of. And they're like, oh, that would be a really good program for me.
Yeah. And this makes me think about like, The sales process itself, whenever I talk with our clients about like what their sales process is like, specifically the consultation part, when it comes down to talking about programs and pricing, talking about the program, I like to make that like an entire conversation in itself, because instead of saying, I recommend this program, it comes with this, and this, and we're going to work on this command, this command, this command, and blah, blah. Instead of just listing everything out, I like to do it or teach our clients to do it in a way where you are incorporating all of that into their personal life. So, we're going to work on sit, and we're going to work on down, and we're also going to work on, you know, let's say place, for example, because you mentioned that your dog is always counter surfing, and then they're always under your feet while you're trying to cook, and then they're always begging for food. So I think this place command is going to really come in handy whenever it's dinner time, or we're going to work on door manners. This is what it'll look like afterwards. So we don't have to worry about those incidences anymore when your dog jumped up on grandma and scratched her arm, so
Oh no, poor grandma.
whatever they talked about in the consultation as like those pain points, I like to bring it up again when I'm talking about what's being included in the program. So saying all that to say, a holiday readiness program is essentially doing that. It's just making it more specified to, things that people often deal with during the holidays, around like Thanksgiving and Christmas time, or like the 4th of July when there's a lot of like fireworks outside and stuff like that. So I think like anytime you're trying to sell a program, like it's always important to include those pain points in there, so they can not only like visualize like, oh, my dog is going to know these commands, but they can like visualize when they would actually be using those. So that's essentially what it is. You're just, marketing it to essentially everyone, because everyone is going to be dealing with the chaos of 4th of July. Everyone's going to be, if you celebrate Christmas, going to be dealing with the chaos that comes along with Christmas.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, just to put a final point on this, what you just said, Angel, is so important to closing your leads at a high percentage, right? Like, here's what a lot of people struggle with. They focus so heavily on the dog's behavior, right? And all they talk about is the dog's behavior, right? And that's important, right? But what's way more important to actually get because you're selling to the human being. Like, it's easy to forget that, but that is who you're selling to, right? And the dog's behavior are really a symptom of a much larger problem in this person's life, right? So like, it's not the reason they called you is not because the dog is begging for food. It's because of the annoyance that is caused by the dog begging for food, if that makes sense, right? It's the emotion that's associated with that, right? It's like the jumping on people, it's a problem, but it's the embarrassment or the fear that comes along with it if you have a newborn baby, or you have a pregnant wife, or little old grandma, right? So like, it's you have to think of it in that regard. And so you're selling these people on like fixing those problems, right? And making them feel like you don't have to have the fear, you don't have to have the embarrassment, you don't have to deal with the annoyance of it anymore. That's the stuff that you're selling people on. And so I know that they're intimately tied together, but I do think that's a really important distinction. And so you really laid that out beautifully there, where you're like, the dog is like laying at your feet when you're cooking dinner. It's annoying, And so like, listen, saying to people like, acknowledging that, like, hey, I know how annoying that can be, right? Like, I know how annoying it can be when like you just want to be able to like you have young kids, you're struggling to get the food on the table, the dog's following you around, you're tripping over them as you're trying to bring it to the table and stuff like that. Like, we can make your life so much easier with just the place command, right? And so like, let me explain to you how this is going to work and like what the best program would look like, so you never need to deal with that ever again, right? That is such a more powerful sales pitch to somebody than just talking about like, here are the 4 basic commands we're going to teach your dog. It's like, make them see why those commands and your dog learning those commands is going to have an impact on their life, and spell it out for them. Like, storytelling is a big part of it. Like, you can tell stories about like this mom's life before she got training with us and what it's like afterwards, you know? So like
Hmm.
I just wanted to throw that out there. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
No, I think that pretty much covers it all.
All right, sweet. All right, well, listen, well, we've been going for quite some time here today, so we can wrap it up here. But as always, we appreciate all the support, guys. Appreciate you guys listening to these and giving us feedback and stuff like that. So if you like this, hit the like button, leave a comment down below, tell a friend about it, and we will see you guys very soon in the next one. See you guys.
Bye, guys.